The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council stood in stark contrast to the bustling streets of Earth below. The glass walls framed the cosmos, a vast ocean of stars stretching as far as the eye could see. Each member of the council, an alien species of varying shapes, sizes, and hues, sat in their designated places, their eyes fixed on the center of the chamber. The atmosphere was thick with tension. The council had been convened in haste, called together by the growing unease surrounding one planet, Earth. At the head of the chamber, the representative for Earth stood, a human named Ambassador Sutherland. He was flanked by military and diplomatic aides, all scanning the room in anticipation. Their presence was as much a statement of humanity's newfound status as a warning. No longer relegated to the fringes of the galaxy, humanity had fought tooth and nail to be seated at this table, and now they found themselves facing an ultimatum. Sutherland cleared his throat, his voice steady but carrying a weight that filled the entire room. The United Nations of Earth has not come here to submit, but to address the accusations levied against us. We seek dialogue, not conflict. A deep, metallic voice cut through the air before Sutherland could continue. You misunderstand, Ambassador. The Veshkvar do not seek dialogue. Sovereign Zaldar's image flickered onto the main holoscreen. His elongated, obsidian-black face was calm, but his dark eyes betrayed no hint of mercy. Humanity's rise in power is a threat to the stability of the galaxy. We give you one choice: submit to our rule, or face obliteration. The Veshkvar, a race known for their ruthless pragmatism and nearly unbeatable military might, had long been the galaxy's dominant force. But humanity, in the span of mere centuries, had made leaps that even the Veshkvar found unsettling. Their technology was advancing rapidly, their population growing exponentially, and their influence was beginning to spread across neighboring systems. The Council had met countless times over smaller issues, but this was different. The Council chamber erupted in a flurry of whispers and heated debates. The leaders of various species began to voice their concerns, but it was clear to all that the Veshkvar were not bluffing. Their empire spanned dozens of systems, each one a testament to their technological superiority. And now, they had set their sights on Earth. Ambassador Sutherland's gaze flickered to the human representatives seated behind him, Captain Cassandra Thompson among them. Thompson, the youngest captain in the United Earth Defense Fleet, stood at attention. Her sharp eyes betrayed no fear, only a focused intensity. She had prepared for moments like these, but nothing could truly prepare a person for the weight of what was about to come. Zaldar's voice returned, this time more chilling. You humans have only one chance. Accept our terms and submit. If not, we will deliver a force unlike anything you've ever witnessed. Sutherland, with great effort, kept his composure. We will not submit. Humanity will fight for its right to exist. The words rang out, defiant, but to the aliens in the room, it sounded almost naive. A few council members shifted uneasily in their seats. They had seen the way the Veshkvar handled opposition, and the galaxy's perception of humanity was still that of a young species, lacking the wisdom and strength of its older counterparts. As Sutherland continued his address, Thompson's mind raced. She'd fought in skirmishes, commanded smaller fleets, but this was different. The Veshkvar were known for their devastating force, their ships capable of leveling entire cities in a single blast. How could humanity, still new to the vastness of the galaxy, stand a chance? She caught the eye of Captain Brody, her first officer, who stood nearby. His expression mirrored her thoughts. The Veshkvar weren't asking for submission, they were demanding it. The galaxy's oldest, most powerful empire was threatening humanity's existence. Sutherland turned back to the council. We will not cower. We will fight. His voice was firm, unwavering. The room fell silent. There were no more whispered arguments, no hushed exchanges. The weight of what had been declared hung heavy over them all. Captain Thompson stepped forward, her boots clicking against the polished floor. Ambassador, with all due respect, Thompson began, her voice cutting through the silence. Our fleet is small compared to the Veshkvar. We are not as advanced as they are. But we are human. We survive. We adapt. And we fight. The words struck a chord. In a galaxy full of species that had evolved through sheer dominance, humanity's greatest asset was its resilience. For all the Veshkvar's power, for all their technological superiority, they had never known the hunger for survival that pulsed through humanity's veins. Thompson's gaze shifted to the hollow projector above the table, where a schematic of the Veshkvar's fleet flashed on the screen. She knew that humanity had no illusions about the odds. But she also knew that the Veshkvar had never faced anything like the ingenuity and sheer willpower of humankind. "Whatever it takes," she said, louder now, her voice unwavering. "We will not go quietly." Ambassador Sutherland nodded, grateful for Thompson's confidence. The Veshkvar might have fleets, but humanity had something more powerful, its heart. Zaldar's hologram shifted slightly. "You are all fools. Do not think that your resistance will change anything. The Veshkvar are inevitable. We will crush you." Captain Thompson clenched her jaw, the weight of the threat settling in her chest. "Not if we have anything to say about it." The council was quiet now, the declaration echoing in the vast chamber. Humanity had refused to kneel, had chosen instead to fight. The Veshkvar may have been the galaxy's rulers, but today, they had awakened something in humanity that could never be erased. As the chamber buzzed with uneasy silence, Thompson stepped back. She exchanged a brief glance with Sutherland. The challenge was set. The war was coming, and humanity would be ready. The chapter closes with a view of Earth, its blue atmosphere glowing against the cold void of space. The looming dread of the Veshkvar fleet hovering in orbit only served to sharpen humanity's resolve. The battle for survival had begun. The sharp hum of the command console filled the silence as Captain Cassandra Thompson surveyed the battlefield displayed before her. The Invincible, humanity's pride and hope, drifted through space, surrounded by a small but determined fleet of Earth's ships. Thompson's eyes, cold and calculating, studied the Veshkvar fleet on the holoscreen, a vast armada, dwarfing humanity's forces in both size and firepower. "All ships are in position, Captain," reported Lieutenant Brooks, her voice steady but tinged with apprehension. He was her trusted second-in-command, a veteran of skirmishes in the Outer Rim, but even he couldn't hide the unease that lingered in the air. The weight of the situation was pressing on everyone. Thompson didn't respond immediately. Her eyes scanned the alien ships again, their sleek, dark shapes gliding effortlessly through space. They were ancient, well-armed, and vastly more advanced than anything humanity could match. The Veshkvar had made it clear, surrender or die. But humanity had already chosen its path, and there was no going back now. "We've got one shot at this," she said finally, breaking the silence. "I won't sugarcoat it, our fleet isn't a match for theirs in a straight fight. But we're human, and that means we think differently. We adapt. We fight smart." Brooks nodded, his jaw set with determination. "And we make them regret underestimating us." Thompson stood tall, her mind racing through the tactical options, but one idea stood out: guerrilla warfare. They might not have the firepower to match the Veshkvar, but they had speed, precision, and above all, the element of surprise. "Deploy decoy signals across the fleet," she ordered. "Get them focused on the wrong target. Meanwhile, we'll hit them where they're weakest, under their radar. We'll use the asteroid belt for cover. We've got no time to waste." The plan was risky, but it was the only option they had. They needed to cause chaos, disrupt the Veshkvar's formation, and buy time for Earth's defenses to rally. As the Invincible and the other Earth ships moved into position, the Veshkvar fleet advanced steadily, their enormous battleships forming a near-impenetrable wall of firepower. The gap between the two forces closed rapidly, and Thompson could already feel the tension rising in her crew. The Veshkvar's ships were designed to obliterate entire fleets with minimal effort: massive weaponry, impenetrable shields, and relentless firepower. "Brace for impact," Thompson ordered, as the first wave of Veshkvar artillery lit up the sky, sending shockwaves through space. The soundless explosion rippled through the fleet, shaking the Invincible to its core. "Shields holding, Captain!" Lieutenant Brooks called out. Thompson's eyes flicked to the screen, calculating. "We can't take another hit like that. Execute the decoy plan. Now. With a flash of light, the Earth ships scattered, creating a disorienting pattern of false signals and rapid evasive maneuvers. The decoys, advanced drones mimicking the signature of Earth's ships, began emitting high-frequency signals, creating confusion in the Veshkvar fleet. It was working. Target locked, Thompson said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Fire on the Veshkvar's lead cruiser. Now! The first salvo from the Invincible launched into space, aimed directly at the Veshkvar flagship, the Sovereign's Wrath. The shots struck the flagship's shields, but the return fire was swift. Explosions rocked the ships around them as the Veshkvar retaliated with devastating force. Earth's fleet was outclassed, but Thompson's tactics kept them in the fight. Steady, everyone. Don't engage in a direct battle unless we're sure we can win the skirmish, Thompson barked. Use the terrain, get us closer to that asteroid belt. We'll hide in the debris and fire when they least expect it. For hours, the battle raged. Earth's ships, nimble and quick, darted in and out of the asteroid field, using the rocks for cover while launching quick bursts of fire at the Veshkvar. It was a game of cat and mouse, a constant exchange of fire and evasions. Humanity's fleet couldn't sustain prolonged engagements, but they could keep the Veshkvar guessing. Thompson's strategy was paying off. The Veshkvar ships, confused by the decoys and human tactics, began to separate. It wasn't a complete victory, but humanity was doing more than surviving. They were making an impression. Captain? Brooks shouted, his voice laced with urgency. The Veshkvar flagship is breaking formation. They're coming straight for us. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Full speed ahead, Thompson snapped. The Veshkvar flagship, the Sovereign's Wrath, bore down on the Invincible like a predator closing in on its prey. Its weapons powered up, massive energy cannons aimed directly at Earth's flagship. Thompson's fingers flew over the control panel, issuing commands faster than anyone could keep up. Activate the gravity wells around us. Set up a trap. The gravity wells, a human innovation, were powerful enough to distort the enemy's navigation systems and slow them down. The trick was simple: trap the larger, slower Veshkvar ships in the gravity wells and outmaneuver them. Gravity wells deployed, came the confirmation. The Veshkvar flagship adjusted course, but it was too late. The heavy ship lurched, caught in the gravitic pull, as the Invincible darted away, firing on all cylinders. Full power to the engines! Take us behind that asteroid, Thompson ordered. The maneuver was risky. The Veshkvar flagship was still firing, but its shots were off target now, the energy cannons whizzing past Earth's ships. The Invincible darted behind a massive asteroid, shielding itself from direct fire, but the Veshkvar were quick to adjust, their own ships closing in, calculating the trajectory. Thompson didn't hesitate. Now fire! Earth's fleet launched a final barrage, this time from a blind spot. The shots struck the Sovereign's Wrath, hitting the flagship's weaker rear shields. It wasn't a mortal blow, but it was enough to shake the Veshkvar's confidence. For the first time in the battle, the flagship faltered, its once perfect formation beginning to crack. Direct hit! Shouted Brooks, his face breaking into a rare smile. We've got them off balance, Captain. Thompson didn't let herself smile. This isn't over yet. Keep the pressure on. The battle dragged on for hours, with humanity managing to hold its ground through sheer willpower. They had no illusions about winning a decisive victory, but they had succeeded in proving something. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. As the dust settled and the battle raged on, Thompson stood at the command center of the Invincible, eyes glued to the holoscreen. The Veshkvar had been forced to retreat, but they would be back. The war had only just begun. Prepare for the next round, Thompson muttered, her voice steady but filled with determination. We've earned our place in this fight. And we'll make sure the galaxy knows it. The hum of the ship's engines vibrated through the floor as Captain Cassandra Thompson stared at the flickering display in front of her. The galactic map showed Earth at the center, surrounded by the scattered remains of humanity's defenses. The Veshkvar's retaliatory strike had been brutal. A handful of Earth's fleet had survived the initial assault, but the galaxy's power dynamic had shifted. The Veshkvar, though pushed back, had never been truly threatened. Not until now. Thompson's hands were steady on the console, but her mind was a storm of thoughts. Her fleet had only managed to survive through a mix of strategy, ingenuity, and sheer human grit, but every day was a battle for survival. The Veshkvar weren't just fighters, they were thinkers, schemers. And despite the damage they'd sustained, they were not going to stop. But that wasn't the way Thompson operated. If anything, their response had lit a fire inside her, a fire that she knew humanity could use to turn the tide. "Captain," Lieutenant Brooks' voice cut through the tension. "We've intercepted a message from the Veshkvar. They're making their move." Thompson's heart skipped a beat. She'd been expecting this. The Veshkvar would never leave humanity in peace, not after what had happened. She looked up at Brooks, her eyes sharp. "What's their plan?" "Their flagship, the Sovereign's Wrath, is heading toward the outskirts of Earth's defensive grid. They've set up a perimeter and are preparing for another full assault. They'll strike in less than 48 hours. Thompson nodded, her jaw tightening. They weren't just coming for Earth, they were coming to break them. The Veshkvar believed that by crushing Earth's spirit, they could end the rebellion before it truly began. "Where's the rest of our fleet?" she asked, already calculating their next move. "The remaining ships are scattered, Captain. Most of the fleet's still recovering from the last battle. We're outgunned and outnumbered," Brooks replied, his face grim. Thompson exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This wasn't the time for doubt. If there was any chance for humanity to win, it was now. A direct confrontation would mean their destruction. They needed to outsmart the Veshkvar again. "Get me Admiral Reyes," she said. "We've got one shot at this." Admiral Reyes appeared on the screen, his weathered face betraying the exhaustion that had taken over his once unshakable demeanor. "What's the situation, Captain?" "We're about to make our move. We can't engage them head-on, we don't have the resources for that. But we have something they don't. We're going to use the planet's magnetic field to mask our fleet's movements." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "You think we can pull that off?" "I know we can," Thompson replied. "We'll coordinate with the fleet on the ground. They're expecting a frontal assault. We'll give them one, but from a completely different angle. While they're distracted, we'll strike their flanks and tear through their formations." Reyes thought for a moment before nodding slowly. "It's a long shot, but it's our only shot. I'll mobilize the fleet." Thompson turned away from the screen, a flicker of hope in her chest. The plan was dangerous, but it was the best option. They'd use the element of surprise, and humanity's innate adaptability, to its fullest advantage. The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation. Thompson's crew worked tirelessly to get the Invincible ready. The ship's advanced weapon systems were recalibrated, and the smaller strike craft were loaded with all the firepower they could carry. Human ingenuity was on full display. From the engineers in the lower decks to the strategists in the command center, everyone worked with one goal in mind: to survive. As the Invincible slipped out of Earth's atmosphere, its engines glowing against the dark expanse of space, Thompson stood at the helm, eyes fixed on the battlefield ahead. She had seen many battles in her career, but this felt different. This was more than just a fight for Earth. It was a fight for humanity's future in the galaxy. "Captain," Brooks said, stepping up beside her. "We're ready. The fleet's in position." "Good," Thompson replied. "Let's give them something to remember." The battle began in earnest as the Veshkvar launched their initial strike. The Sovereign's Wrath and its fleet moved swiftly, their weapons charging with the promise of destruction. Earth's fleet, still scattered and recovering, was forced into a defensive position. The Veshkvar seemed to have the upper hand once again. But that was exactly what Thompson had anticipated. As the Veshkvar pressed their attack, Thompson's fleet slipped into position, concealed by the planet's magnetic field. It wasn't enough to hide them completely, but it created enough interference to make their ships nearly invisible to the Veshkvar's sensors. The Veshkvar were focused on Earth, expecting the inevitable assault. They didn't see the human fleet closing in from the side, already in position to strike. Thompson's voice rang out across the comms. Now! Hit them hard! The Earth fleet's cannons fired in unison, their blasts bright against the backdrop of space. The first few strikes hit their mark, slamming into the Veshkvar's outer ships, and for the first time, the Veshkvar flinched. It wasn't enough to cripple them, but it was enough to shake their confidence. Captain, we've got their attention, Brooks said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. They're turning their fleet to face us. I know. But we've got one more move to make. Set the course for the Sovereign's wrath, Thompson ordered. Prepare for the final assault. The Veshkvar fleet was forced to shift its formation, now fully aware of the human fleet's presence. But it was too late. The humans, unpredictable and resourceful, had already anticipated this. As the larger ships began to form a defensive perimeter around their flagship, Thompson led a final, devastating charge directly at the Sovereign's wrath. Her fleet surged forward with surprising speed, attacking from unexpected angles. The Invincible itself darted toward the flagship, evading fire and striking with pinpoint accuracy. The Veshkvar flagship fired back, but the humans had already initiated a daring maneuver, a flanking strike designed to overload their shields. Direct hit to their shields! Brooks reported, his voice filled with excitement. They're vulnerable, Captain! Thompson didn't hesitate. All ships full assault. Let's finish this! The final strike was chaotic, beautiful in its precision. Earth's fleet, though small, now had the advantage. The Veshkvar flagship, having focused too much on brute force, was forced to defend against simultaneous strikes from all sides. The ships converged, unleashing everything they had left. As the Invincible delivered the final blow, the flagship's shields flickered and collapsed. The Veshkvar flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the shockwave sending a ripple through space. For a brief moment, silence reigned. And then, the human fleet erupted in cheers. Thompson stood at the command deck, her face stoic despite the victory. They'll be back, she muttered, eyes still on the stars. Brooks nodded, understanding the weight of her words. But not today. Today, we've shown them that humanity can fight, and we can win. Captain Thompson turned to face her crew, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. This is just the beginning. But for today, we've earned the right to stand tall. The tide had turned. Humanity had survived. And now, they would fight for their future, one battle at a time. The silence after victory was deafening. For a brief moment, Captain Cassandra Thompson stood at the helm of the Invincible, staring out into the vastness of space. The destruction of the Sovereign's wrath had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, but the victory felt hollow. Humanity had won a battle, not the war. Yet the message was clear: humanity was no longer the underdog. They had proven that they could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's mightiest. Captain! Lieutenant Brooks' voice broke the stillness. We've received a transmission. It's from the Veshkvar. Thompson turned, her face expressionless. Put it through. The hologram flickered to life, and once again, Sovereign Zaldar's cold, impassive face filled the screen. His alien eyes narrowed as he surveyed the remains of his flagship. You think this victory changes anything? Zaldar's voice was a low growl, filled with contempt. This will be your undoing, Captain Thompson. We will rebuild. The Veshkvar do not lose. Thompson stepped forward, her jaw tightening. You've underestimated humanity before, Sovereign. You're doing it again. Zaldar's gaze was cold, his lips curling into a sneer. I don't care about your people's resilience. It won't save you. The Veshkvar will destroy you. I've heard it all before, Thompson replied, her voice unwavering. And every time, we've proven you wrong. Don't mistake this moment for an end. It's just the beginning. Zaldar's hologram flickered. This isn't over. You have sealed your fate. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. Thompson's hands tightened on the railing as she looked out over the remains of the battlefield. Despite the victory, her instincts told her that the war was far from finished. The following hours were filled with briefings, strategic assessments, and military reports. Thompson's mind was constantly moving, calculating, weighing options. Every victory had come at a cost, and every cost had a price. The human fleet had inflicted heavy damage on the Veshkvar, but there were still forces in the galaxy that hadn't been mobilized yet, forces that would make the Veshkvar's fury seem mild. Thompson's voice rang out in the command room. Admiral Reyes, I want full mobilization. We can't rely on just one victory. We've bought ourselves some time, but only a small window. The Veshkvar will regroup. Reyes, his graying hair a stark contrast to the youth of his crew, nodded. Understood, Captain? We'll be ready. Thompson's gaze hardened. We'll need every ship we've got. Every fighter, every resource. The Veshkvar are coming back with everything. And when they do, we'll meet them with everything we have. Reyes met her gaze, his eyes steady. You've got it. We'll get the fleet ready. 2 days passed, and the Invincible and its fleet rallied. The entire galaxy was watching. Humanity, once viewed as a fledgling species barely able to hold its ground, was now a force to be reckoned with. Earth had already begun preparing for the inevitable. The Veshkvar wouldn't just attack again. They would bring everything they had to bear. As Thompson sat in her quarters, looking out over the view of the stars, her mind couldn't help but replay the events. The Veshkvar had underestimated them, and humanity had won a crucial victory. But the next battle would determine everything. The galaxy was vast, and humanity's place in it was uncertain. A victory here could cement their future. A loss could wipe them from the galactic map. Captain! Brooks' voice came over the intercom, breaking her thoughts. You might want to see this. The holoroom was alive with activity as Thompson entered, her officers already stationed at their stations. Brooks was at the console, his face grim. What is it? Thompson asked. New intel from the Galactic Council, Brooks said, his voice tight. The Veshkvar are not acting alone. They've allied with several other species we've never even encountered before. It's a coalition of power. Thompson's stomach dropped. She'd expected retaliation, but this was something far worse. The Veshkvar were now backed by forces that could tip the scales entirely. She could feel the weight of the room pressing down on her. This changes everything, she said quietly. We've already seen their strength, Brooks replied. This is more than just the Veshkvar now. We're facing an alliance of the galaxy's most powerful races. Thompson turned to the map, her mind racing. The odds were staggering. The Veshkvar had been formidable on their own, but now humanity was facing multiple enemies, each one with advanced weapons and tactics. They didn't just have to win, they had to survive. Prepare the fleet, Thompson ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. We don't have the luxury of waiting for them to make the first move. We go on the offensive now. I want every ship ready for deployment. As the days turned into hours, the fleet began assembling. The final battle was drawing near, and humanity's chances rested on a razor's edge. Thompson stood on the command deck of the Invincible, watching as the last of the fleet's ships departed Earth's atmosphere. The time for speeches and strategies was over. Now, it was about survival. Her voice was calm, but there was a fire in it that none could mistake. This is it. We've fought, bled, and sacrificed. This is our last stand. But we are humans. And we never give up. We fight for our future, for our families, for everything we've built. The crew, though exhausted, was ready. Thompson's leadership had unified them, giving them a strength they didn't know they had. As the Invincible and the fleet moved into position, the full scale of the Veshkvar and their allies' forces became clear. The sheer number of ships was overwhelming, dwarfing humanity's forces. But it didn't matter. In the silence of space, the countdown to battle began. Captain, Brooks said, his voice steady. We're in position. Thompson's gaze was unwavering. Let's give them hell. The battle that followed was nothing short of chaos. Laser fire, explosions, and the screech of overloaded engines filled the vacuum of space as the two forces collided. The human fleet, though smaller, fought with everything they had. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outwilled. For hours, the battle raged. Thompson's crew fought with determination, every action infused with a sense of urgency. The odds against them were greater than they'd ever faced, but humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever before. Thompson knew that if they were to survive, it would be because of that relentless drive to survive, to adapt, and to never back down. As the last of the Veshvar fleet finally retreated, battered and broken, Thompson stood at the command deck, her face streaked with sweat and dust, but her eyes alight with victory. They had won. Not just a battle. Not just a war. They had won their place in the galaxy. "We did it," Brooks said quietly, his voice filled with awe. Thompson looked out at the stars, her expression unreadable. "Yes. We did. But this is just the beginning." Humanity had proven its worth. The galaxy would never be the same again. And neither would they.